welcome back. So all the studies are being circulated right now as to the incredible amount of time our young people, including young children, spend tweeting and texting and using laptops without supervision and smartphones. Of course, I relayed a story earlier. So I've asked Dr. Wendy Rice to come on. She is with a Rice Psychology Group in Tampa, so she's a Florida doc. How are you?
I'm like you, a Florida doc from New York.
There you go, same deal. Well, one of the things that I discuss, I've been reading all these studies, and then last night my 6-year-old grandson told me he needed a cell phone. So I said, who are you going to call? And he said, no, it's not to call people on. This is just a handheld computer to a 6-year-old now. Mm-hmm. And all I kept thinking was, how do you fight back? I'm sure that his mother, who's young enough to also be addicted to these devices, will probably approve of this. It's kind of scary.
It's very scary, especially if your little 6-year-old grandson has access to the internet. Mm-hmm. Because I always say it's like letting your kids free in Grand Central Station and telling them they can talk to anyone they want and go hop on any train they want. Let us know when you get there. Touch base periodically, but nobody's supervising.
Yeah. I look back, and people know my story. I raised 2 kids as a single mom, and I didn't have a television set in my house because I was afraid that they wouldn't read if they could sit in front of a television set. And I ended up, being right. My kids were able to do very well in school, go on to Ivy League institution. One's an attorney, one's a doctor. And I don't like the access to a television set, never mind the internet.
Right. A lot of parents won't go so far to not have that, but if they can at least monitor it and control it and help their kids use it wisely, that would be a step in the right direction, although clearly your approach was a successful one.
Yeah, no.
Maybe it had to do with their mom, too.
Well, hopefully it had something to do with it. But I have to tell you, it does take fortitude. I looked at my 6-year-old grandson, who I adore, and he plays Candy Crush or something on my cell phone when he gets bored in a restaurant. So I looked at him, I thought, well, how much could it hurt him? And when I start to have that thought, I know it's really pretty, it is the wild, wild west, and I'm sending him out there without a guardian. What should parents do, especially with teenagers? They know more about technology than I do. They get homework online.
Right. And that's really a challenge for so many families because the kids say they're doing homework, and some of them are doing homework, and some of them are toggling back and forth between social media sites and homework. A lot of them are watching videos on YouTube. So the challenge for parents really are a couple. One is you've got to talk to your kids, let them know what you're doing online a little bit, and see if they'll share with you the sites they're going to, number one. They need to friend you. You need to be included as their friend on their sites. And, they think they're entitled to privacy, but really not so much. Mm-hmm. You can say to them, I'm not going to say anything, and then you have to be true to your word not to type stuff on their page. You just need to be there as a supervisor. And really, parents need to spend time learning about social media because kids are going to be a step ahead of us, but if we're not 42 steps behind, then we have a shot.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a constant re-education for me. I was watching a special on television the other night because now I do have a TV, and in this special it was exploring the world of child slavery and basically human slavery in this country, not abroad. I'm talking about in Miami, in Washington, D.C., and in major urban centers, and almost invariably the child responded to something on the internet and put themselves in a dangerous position and were then taken. I mean, I was so scared, I was almost, prompted to take away my own cell phone. I mean, how does this stuff go on, and why isn't there more law enforcement involved, I guess?
Well, it's expensive and it's difficult to monitor, but there is quite a lot being done at a national and local level to manage sex trafficking and manage this. I know I've recently learned that Tampa is one of the biggest hubs of sex trafficking in the country, and you think not here, it must be in Thailand, must be elsewhere, but it's not true. It's happening in our own backyard, and the FBI and the local police are monitoring all of this, but there's only so much that they can do, and a person's a predator because they're good at stalking their prey, unfortunately, and it's a scary thought about our children.
Now, there's a big case down here about a 12-year-old bully arrested for basically going on Facebook and admitting that she could care less that her bullying resulted in the suicide of another 12-year-old kid.
Right.
How do you, now there's bullied to death? I mean, I went to school and I went to a New York school. I was bullied and, I fought back and the bully went away. But how do you fight back, like if you're attacked cyber side by a bunch of people? It's like, you're basically jumped by 10 people in your age group.
And when you go home from school, you're not really safe because if you turn on any kind of technology, there they are. So, the key is for parents to really keep an eye on their kids and see about behavior changes and see about, avoiding school and all of that, and then following up at the school level and at the police level if that's necessary, which means taking screenshots of this stuff and presenting it and not backing down until things are done and getting your kids as well as those kids who are doing the bullying offline because they're not using it responsibly.
Well, that's when you looked at the mother of the bully arrested a couple of days later for, getting caught on a videotape of beating children, that this is a family disease. And I guess, part of what, I want to ask you about that particular case is what makes a kid more vulnerable to bullying? Because it didn't look like there was anything extraordinary. This was not a kid, like there's recently been a case of some handicapped kid who got bullied and then everybody stood up for her at a stadium. But what makes a young girl who's lovely, has friends, participates in social activities, so bullied that she would kill herself? What makes her vulnerable?
And sometimes we can identify what makes her vulnerable and sometimes not. In this situation, it was over a boy. And we know that can be a problem, and middle school can be an incredibly vicious time where everybody's looking to be included and not ostracized, and kids pick on the most insignificant, nothing things. And everybody knows growing up there was kids who can find your weakness, you don't even know it's out there, and they just exploit it. I mean, it's a super mean kid thing to do.
It's amazing to me because I guess what I do for a living is pretty aggressive, and I go after, highfalutin politicians, but they can defend themselves. The idea of preying on the innocent it's not something that I can fully comprehend, I must admit. But I better figure
it's outrageous.
Yeah, and I better figure some of this stuff out because now I've got grandchildren that I have to start thinking about, and they're in a very high-tech environment. My youngest grandson, my biological grandson, my daughter's a psychiatrist, and her husband's a radiologist, and they have this 1-year-old child. And you go to their home, and everybody's on a device. The child
and the challenge, the challenge for the littlest ones is how do you keep them away from screen time, which means that we as the adults need to have our screens off whenever those kids are around because it's too tempting. It sucks them in.
Yeah.
It sucks all of us in.
And I told my daughter, I want to see you, at least when I'm visiting, reading to him, sitting on the floor and playing silly games and singing nursery rhymes. I said, because the lure of that well-lit screen in the hands of both you, your husband on an iPad and you on your smartphone, how's he going to resist that? You're the most important two people in the world to him.
Right, and make sure he knows that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, these are so many challenges. I mean, we got to just stay ahead of the curve. That's all. I don't want to find out that more of this is going on in my community. I found a website the other day. This will blow your mind, although you probably know about it, where teenagers tweet out a destination, and they all go there, and then they film each other like fist fighting and banging each other around, and then they post it on this website, and every day they vote to see which was the most brutal or most, horrible fight that took place. How do we stay ahead of all this? How do we keep our kids out of those very tempting situations? The amount of time spent in front of a video game, who knows the difference between life and death? It's just a matter of pressing a joy button.
Right, we really need our top high school seniors who are tech savvy and every 3 months to provide all the parents in the community with an update of what's going on.
I like that. That'd be a great project for a high school class.
Yeah, but they need to do it because it changes so fast.
Right.
That they need to say, every 3 months, okay, Twitter's still okay, Instagram's okay, Snapchat's really hot right now.
Instagram.
Ask FM or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And then, okay, now Facebook's out because nobody's using that. Only the old fogies use that, like the 35s and up. And do you know what I mean? And then it keeps, I'm including myself in that. And they need to keep us updated.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like that idea. I think I may approach some of the teachers that I know in at least in Broward and Palm Beach County and see if we could maybe start that up. Just as a parent or a grandparent, it'd be a tremendous service. Well, thank you, Dr. Rice, for coming on and spending a little time with us and just helping me to try and make sense. Some of the stuff you just can't make sense of.
Thanks for inviting me.
Pleasure. Thank you.